Hi, this is Rebecca Sackett. Today I've done a video on doing a monthly layout in PowerApps for calendar view. This is not going to be tied to any type of data source. This is just more the first half, getting all of it set up. I use templates a lot, and I've set that screen up where I can use it in other places where I have everything laid out. But once you kind of get it down, it's really not that hard to use and format how you'd like for your needs. So let's just open a new app and get started. I'm going to go ahead and do a tablet layout. And then go ahead and pick a quick theme. I'm going to go ahead and change my screen size here because this is the one I'm used to using. I use this widescreen here a lot, and the reason is I feel it works good on all devices. It works good on an iPad, but also lays out good on a computer and a phone. So it's just personal preference. So let's go ahead and call this one Screen Home, and then we're going to add one more screen. That way we've got an easy way to click off and back where we can set the variables. If you only had this one screen, you would do a few things different, but it's very rare I do one that doesn't have a home screen. So this part here is not really important. This is just, I would suggest a few things that you're used to using. I'm just going to put a little bar here on the side, add an icon for going home, a little label at the top, a few things like that. And the reason is it just helps you get your sizing right. So even if you delete it later or make a few changes, it's just a good way to see how it would fit. So I'm not really going to do a lot with this. I'm probably not even going to bother putting the code on there. I just am trying to get some layout. Just a quick label that I would have at the top, and this is just kind of giving me space. Sometimes I even just take the rectangle boxes and I'll put it around the edges, any places I think I might not want to get into that area, and I'll just make them red or something. And it just helps me get my sizing right. So just gonna, that's where you put an app name or something. I'll just leave that at that. Okay. So the first thing is going to be on the on start. These are two variables I always use. One is I set my current user to whoever the current user is. So just give it a variable name and then do user open closed and one more closed. And then I'm going to set the current date because these are two things that won't change while you're in the app. So I do these on the on start and nowhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and run this real quick so those get set. And then we're going to go here to the calendar screen. And then we have several that we're going to set the on visible. I'm going to do a little bit of explanation on these, but not a crazy amount. Basically, if you look at these, they're going to be mathematical. So the first one I'm going to do is set my date selected to the current date. If you wanted to do something different, you could do that here. You could say set my date selected to date value January 1st. Or you could look to see what the first day of the year for the current year is and put that. Or there's several different variations you could do with that. But I'm just going to do it off the current date. That's just kind of giving me a starting point. And then we're going to set the first day of the month. We're going to add the dates selected. And we're going to add one day to it and then subtract the date selected and see how many days that is. So basically, if I were going to put this in layman's terms, it's taking the date selected, and then we're adding, if we were to say, let me think how to explain this. If today's March 4th and I were to add one day to the, and then subtract the 4th from it, I'm basically left with the first of the month. So that's how I'd say with this plan. Each of these variables basically go off of the variable before it. So you're going to want to make sure that you keep them in the same order so that they are able to look at the one above it. So the second variable, the first day of the month, it refers to the date selected. This one, where we're going to do the first day in view, it's looking at the first day of the month. So this is going to tell us which one is basically in the top left-hand corner of the calendar. And then we're going to do the last day of the month. Which is also going to look at the first day selected. Like I said, if you wanted to really break these all down, they're basically all just mathematical equations that make sense when you look at it. It seems like it's really confusing, but it's really not. So for date add, it's basically you take a date and then you put in the quantity, and then you decide if you're adding or subtract. Well, if it's date add, you're going to be adding a day or adding a month. So last day of the month, we take the first day of the month and we add 1 month and then subtract 1 day, and that gives us the last day of the month. And these are not specific to any type of data source, so you could take this information here exactly the way it is and use it, and that would be fine. The first part right here that's in the beginning, after the set, those are my names I chose to use. You can change those if you'd like. That's entirely up to you, but you can keep all of this exactly the same as it is. You could just pause it when I get here to the end and take it down exactly the same way, and you could use it. None of this has to be changed for yours. So we've got the minimum date, and then we're going to set the maximum date. Which is going to be the first day of the month minus weekday, first day of the month minus 2 plus 35, I think here. No, this one's plus 1, and then I'm going to put days 35. And that 35, you could change. The reason it's 35 is there's 7 across and 5 down, which is 35. It's kind of given us how much can show at one time. And there's probably plenty of people who can explain this stuff way better than me. I've just kind of picked it apart for my needs. So if you're not going to change anything, then there's no reason to really dig into it any deeper, and you could use it just fine. If you really wanted to make a lot of changes to yours, you want it to show 3 months at a time, or start off of where it's showing quarters each time you click, or whatever. Any kind of changes that you want where you want it more specialized for your need, then you're going to need to understand these dates a little better. So we're going to put this little box up top so that we can put the month and year there, and we're going to do where they can go previous month and the next month. Go ahead and change this color so we can see it real quick. More padding. Okay, so the on select on this one is going to be very similar to part of what we used for the on visible. So we're going to set this here. And really go over here and copy and paste a portion of this. So we need to start with the first day of the month. First day of month, first day in view, last day in month. And then we're going to do something different on the minimum date. We won't do anything with the maximum date on this one. So let's just copy that and put that down here. And then we're going to make a few changes here. So we're going to do this one -1. I'll just cover this. So we're going to take the first day of the month, and then we're going to subtract 1 month. So this one's pretty simple. Remove some of this and then change it to a month. On the first day of view and last day of view, we're actually, sorry, welcome all the time. We're actually not going to change those. They get changed when they get clicked, but we're not going to change what it says here because they're looking at the first day of month. So the first day of month got adjusted, those two need to get adjusted. So that's why they're here, but we keep them exactly the same. And we're going to add one more piece here at the end. And this one's going to be an if statement. So we're going to say if the minimum date is greater than the first day of the month, then we want to set the minimum date to the first day of the month. Pretty simple. Okay, so the other direction, going to the next month, it's going to be similar with just a few changes. So let's just copy this. I'm super big on copy and paste. And we're going to paste this over here. So this one, instead of subtracting, we're going to add 1 month to the first day of the month. Instead of changing the last day, we're going to keep changing the first day because the last day is set off the first day of the month. So, and then this part, we are going to change those. So this one, we're going to be looking at the maximum date instead of the minimum. So if the last day of the month is greater than the maximum date, then set the maximum date to the last day of the month. Okay, so those should work. Now we're going to go ahead and test this out before we go any further. So let's insert a label. Put this here in the middle. And just change this real quick. Okay, and then we're going to do, center it, and then the text value for this is going to be text open first day of month, and then we want the month and the year of it. Okay, it's not showing anything right now, and that's because we haven't set any of those variables. So we're going to click away and come back, and then we should see it. So we're going to go here to just click on the home screen and then click back. So now we see it. And just to make sure our little forward and backwards work. Alrighty. And now I'll move to the next piece. So now we're going to do the part where it just shows the days of the week. We're going to put in a gallery that is going to be a blank horizontal. If you're using a different screen size or you're trying to get all this a different size, that's fine. But keep in mind that it's going to be 7 across. So whatever you decide that this width is, it would be better to make it something that can be easily divided by 7. And same with the height. You're going to want, on the bottom part, since there's 5 rows, you're going to want it something that you can divide easily by 5. I'm going to go ahead and change this template size here. I guess I have to do it manually. Put that back. Sometimes if you just drag on something, it'll allow you to just type over there to the side. I guess not on the template size. So we're going to set this to 150, and when it's setting that, that's saying how wide it is because of this type of gallery, not how tall it is. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and we got to set the items. This is going to be calendar, weekday short, and there's open close. And then when you insert a label here real quick, you'll see that, click in the box, you'll see that it'll show the weekdays. Okay, let's just do a little bit of quick formatting. Centered. I need to go and give it a border. Alright. On the, there's a few things you can do here if you wanted to. I do because some of the ones I use for scheduling, we don't typically try to schedule stuff on a weekend. I'm going to put a box behind this real quick. I forgot to do that earlier. We don't typically schedule stuff for on purpose on the weekend. I mean, it happens, but so I try to make it where it's obvious that the date is that this is a weekend. So sometimes I will do a little bit of fill in there where the Saturday and Sunday are slightly different color. If you had something else, like if it's something that you didn't want anybody scheduling stuff on Wednesdays or whatever it may be, there's a few things that you could do with that type of thing. For right now, I'm just going to do it with a fill, but there's a lot more that you could do with that if you wanted to. This will kind of give you an idea. So I'm just going to go through and kind of pick a color. This one should do. And then I'm going to say if this item dot value is Saturday or Sunday, or this item is Saturday, then I want it to be this fill color. Otherwise, clear. Okay, so now you can see that they're slightly different color. This is a color I've used on it before, but what I do sometimes when I'm trying to play around with the colors is I'll insert a label just somewhere on the screen, and then I'll kind of click through some of the different colors to see which one I really like. You want to make sure wherever it is, it's the same background color though. So I can just kind of click on a few colors. I just want a slight little difference in the color, not a major one on this one. I could also do it on the color of the text if I wanted to. Anything like that. That'll work. Drag this up here in case I need it later. Alright, now we're going to insert another gallery for the month view part. So this is going to be a blank vertical. Alright, so the width is going to be the same as what it is up top. I've already got that set, and I know that that number is divisible by 7. And then the height, let's do 500. That way I know I can easily do it. It'll just, each row will be 100. Alright, I'm not typing this in. There's the items. It's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3 all the way up to 34. No quotes or anything. You just type the numbers in. With the braces, brackets, whichever, the square ones. My mine's blank. Okay, I'm gonna drag that little box down, get the sizing right. Let's go ahead and do the template to 100 because it's 500. We have 5 rows, so the template size is 100. This one's going the different direction, so at that point the template size is the height. And let's go ahead and insert a label. Alright, this is what it's going to default to, this item.value, but if I were to hit left and right, none of this will ever change. These numbers will always stay the same. So we're going to have to actually change what that label is. We'll use the value, but it's going to be a little more than just this item value. So we're going to say day, date add, and type, first day, in view, number of units is this item.value, and then days. Okay, so now we've got our days lined up. You always kind of want to double check on a calendar and make sure they're right. I know that this is right. I'm going to just size this and move it up. You can make it where it fills up the whole space, but I don't like to. I find it a little harder to get lined up just right, so that's entirely up to you. Alright, and now I'm going to go ahead and insert a box. It's going to default fill it into that whole space, so the size should be right. We're going to make several changes. We want to put this behind the label that shows the date value. And then make sure we have a border, change the fill, things like that. Okay, let's go ahead and do a few settings here. We'll just give it a little starting place. And then I'm going to add a few if statements kind of in here. So what I want is I want my border to be thicker if it's a date that's selected, which right now my date selected is going to be today's date. But once I add a little more to this, I'll allow them to click on it and change what the date selected is. So anytime you see this date add, first day in view, this item.value, that's basically saying this date in this box. So if this date is date selected, then give my border 3, otherwise 1. So when we put the date selected where you can change that in a minute, you'll see that this works fine. And then I'm going to add one other thing. What I typically do here is I'm going to add the different fill colors. So if it's outside the date range, I want to give it a different fill color. So let's try to figure out what a good color is. I like this color. And I'm going to go in here, and if it's not outside the range, I want it clear. So I'm going to leave that there and then paste in front of it this other color. This is the color I want if it is outside the current month's date range. So we're going to say if this ABS, I don't really know how to explain what that means. It's basically a non-negative value. And we're going to refer to this label 5, which is the one that's going to have that date value. So if that label 5 text minus this item's value is greater than 10, then we want it filled, and if not, we want it clear. So you see down here, this 1, 2, 3, 4 down at the bottom, those have a little bit darker color now, and those are letting us know that these are next month's dates. Okay, now let's go ahead, and we're going to add one more thing in here. Let's see that. I'm going to insert a circle, and we're going to put this in here, and what I want this one to do is show the circle where it's always on today's date. So this one won't change by anything selected. I'm going to make it around the same size as the label. You can kind of play around with the sizing and location here, however you'd like. You need to reorder it so that it's behind the label. And then you see you can't really see it, so we'll change that label color off the same thing. So let's hit the circle where it's only showing if it's today's date. So we're going to say is. Again, this date add, first day in view, and this item.value is going to be basically this date. So if this date is the current date, then true, otherwise false. So today's the 4th, that's right. I'm just going to copy this and then go up here to the label and go to the color. Pick one. Oh, that's fine. So we'll say, let's just keep that color and then say, if it's true, so if it's today's date, I want it white so that you can see it over that blue dot. I use white a lot, so I know what that one is. And then if not, we want this color here. So we'll just pull this off and put it over here on the false. Take that little comma off. All right, so now we can see it's dark colored except for on today's date, that's white. So we're going to select all 3 of these and say that when you click on any of these, I want to be able to change it, the date selected, to whichever one I just clicked on. So the on select, we're going to set the date selected to this date value. You'll get used to using this date add, first day view, this item.value. Days a lot because when you start actually putting in the SharePoint list or whatever SQL, whatever data source you're using, you're going to have to refer to that also. So now you can see whenever I click on the different days, it's changing the border because I'm changing the date selected. All right, I can get rid of this. And that's pretty much it. So now that I have this all set up, this would work on any of the data sources I wanted to use. I could use it across multiple apps. And once I have this laid out how I want, I could make copies of it, carry it over to another app, and then tie it to whichever data source I want. So I'll do another video later that shows you how to actually tie it to a data source and make a few different ways you can make it show up. You can do it in a subgallery. You can make it show an icon if there's something on that date, and then you click on it and it pulls up more detail. There's several different options you can do there, but this right here is going to carry across with any of them. I would suggest doing it first. So thank you. Hope this helped.